So what I'm going to do today is just kind of walk through some of the more recent offerings that we've had, some of the improvements that we've made within our solutions, and then kind of take a step back and review PDFTron as a company and go over some of our product line, and then go into more of a deep dive with our Webviewer demo and kind of showing off the sort of different parts of Webviewer that might be of interest to you, some of the different features that we have, and how those can help you out. Now, in addition to that, what we're going to have is, as Nick mentioned, a question and answer period. So what we'll do is after we kind of go through sort of the basic features, we'll kind of maybe answer any specific questions that anyone might have, as well as going into some of the more important features that are mentioned in the poll that Nick is going to be posting shortly. So if there are any particular areas that you'd like to see covered in more depth, please do feel free to just let us know, and we're happy to dive in more detail there. So yeah, it looks like Nick has posted that as well. So yeah, just please let us know, and then we'll kind of go through in more detail about those features. Now, just kind of diving into what we've come up with recently. So in case you're already using Webviewer or our core PDFTron SDK technologies, we do have some updates there on the core side of things. Since the last webinar we ran, we've made some improvements into our advanced imaging module. Previously, that had been really focused on DICOM support, so the ability to take in DICOM images and convert those into PDF and then show those inside of our viewers, or save those just as a standalone PDF document. But we've also added some additional image formats there as well. So in addition to DICOM, we have also support for some raw image formats for many cameras. And so for different cameras out of the box, they might have different raw image formats that they export as, and so we've got support for those there. As well, we've added in support for exporting Xfdf appearances. So that's very helpful for scenarios where you might have custom appearances that are generated by either PDFTron technology or third-party tools, and saved into a PDF. Once you export those annotations that have those custom appearances, those will be saved into Xfdf, and then you can re-import them into other documents. So this can make it a lot easier to kind of migrate away from different solutions that might have their own way of generating custom appearances of annotations on documents. And so with this methodology, you can kind of preserve those more easily. So and additionally, we have also a new diff method that works by semantically comparing different strings inside of two PDF documents. So essentially, what that kind of comparison tool will let you do is much more easily jump to what's changed between two different text documents. So it's just kind of another tool in the arsenal we have of different kinds of comparison tools. I think we've got quite a few different ways of comparing documents now that can therefore be tailored to your specific use cases and exactly how your customers want to go about comparing documents. So we can show that off in a little bit as well. So we have a demo of that available on our Webviewer showcase. On the more Webviewer side of things, so sort of outside of our core toolkit, we've since our last webinar, we've added in support for the older office types. So this is something that we've had available in our core toolkit for quite a while, but in terms of being available within Webviewer, that's something that we've been able to add in, so that way we can directly support those files and load them up directly inside of Webviewer. We've also added support for 3D annotations in Webviewer, and support for our new Office template filling solution as well. And so I hope to show this off in our demo also. But basically what this lets you do is take a template that you may have created in Office, or whether that's Microsoft Office or LibreOffice, but saved as a docx file, and that has placeholder tags within the document, essentially mustache templates, the curly braces. And what our solution can do is take in a JSON file and then replace those within the docx and output a PDF document. It's very similar to our content replacer API, but because we're working with docx, that means that text is handled a bit more predictably. So when new text is added in by replacing that tag, the surrounding text can reflow properly. So that's a bit of an advantage over just doing that replacement in PDF itself. Because we're in docx, we're able to do that just a bit more elegantly. And then in Webviewer as well, we've also improved how you can programmatically manage annotations and the measurements values there. So being able to programmatically do things like set the scale or the display units, the display format, and so on. So that makes it just a bit easier to have a bit more control over how the measurement annotations actually work inside of Webviewer. So, so I'm going to get started with actually kind of showing off Webviewer here. So let me just bring up the screen here. So just sort of taking a step back. So PDFTron as a company was founded a couple of decades ago, really around the time that the PDF specification was first published in the early 2000s and late 90s. So initially our toolkit, which we still have today, is PDFTron SDK. So initially our offering was just for Windows, but since we've ported that over to other platforms like Linux and Mac OS, as well as mobile platforms like iOS and Android and UWP. And what we did a few years back was we took that same core toolkit and compiled it over to JavaScript so that we could run it inside of the browser client side only. Without having to call out to any REST APIs or external services, or without having to install any native code, whether that's a native application or a native plugin or other sort of browser technology. But basically, since it's pure JavaScript, we can run it inside of the browser directly, and leverage all of the same document editing technology that we had for PDF, inside of the browser itself. So that's what we're going to kind of take a look at today through our live demo here on our site. If I just load up pdftron.com, I can actually get to our documentation here under this documentation menu, and from there I can go and for each of these platforms, find detailed guides around how to get this set up in my environment. And as well, for different use cases, we have very detailed walkthroughs for how to start supporting those within your setup. So some of these functionalities are out of the box, but we also have guides for how to go about customizing Webviewer as well. And Webviewer is quite a customizable tool. We actually have the full UI source code posted to GitHub. So if there's anything about how it looks or behaves, you can actually fork that code and tailor it to your own use case. So we'll see a bit of that when we actually get to the demo. But here as well, I just wanted to point out that if you are getting started with it in your environment, that we have links to download it directly. We also have it available on NPM, and for our native toolkits, we have support for NuGet. And we have guides here on how to integrate Webviewer into various frameworks. So if you have a different web development framework than just vanilla JavaScript, or if you need to integrate Webviewer into some sort of platform that you might already have, like Salesforce or SharePoint, we're able to integrate Webviewer directly into those solutions, and then display documents that happen to be stored within those solutions. So we have very detailed guides here, along with videos that walk through exactly how to get things set up. So I definitely would advise, if you are looking to integrate Webviewer into one of these platforms, to just follow this guide here, and that will help you get set up. But to actually kind of see this in action, I'm just going to launch the demo here, kind of get started, taking a look at how these things can be leveraged with inside Webviewer itself. So just bringing up the site here. Unfortunately, it looks like the webinar software might be kind of slowing things down a little bit, but we're here bringing up Webviewer in the viewer here. So this is hosted at pdftron.com. I also have the local samples set up here from setting up Webviewer. So we could take a look at some of those in a bit as well. Basically, all I did was just download our NPM package and then set that up directly here in the viewer, and that starts up these samples here on my local machine. And that enables me to try out these same things here that are on the PDFTron site, just directly in my environment without having to maybe upload documents to the PDFTron site. But on here, what we can do is get a sense of what Webviewer is and how it works. So here what we're doing is viewing a PDF document here in the browser. And as I said before, this is a purely client-side operation. So what we've done is we've downloaded the bytes of the PDF document and brought them down into the browser's memory. And then we're rendering the document here to the screen directly inside of the client. So we're not calling out to any external REST APIs to render the PDF into an image. We're not doing things like running native software here, but rather we're directly with JavaScript here in the browser rendering these documents, and that has a lot of advantages for end users. So one of the reasons that's a bit advantageous is that it means that we can really have nearly unlimited zoom on these documents. So rather than just working with a large bitmap or something like that here in the browser, and then zooming into that and seeing that fine-grained text is rendered in a blurry way, with Webviewer, what we're able to do is still sharply render that text even if it's very small, because we're able to take those PDF bytes and re-render that at this new zoom level. So that gives us a lot of capability for handling documents with a lot of detail, whether that's text or maybe something like a blueprint where we're bringing up a floor plan and we need to zoom in and see those small details in that CAD document. Another advantage of having the actual PDF document itself in the browser is that we can actually manipulate that PDF document directly. So that means if we want to do things like add or remove pages or rearrange pages, or do things like digitally sign documents, those are all things that we can directly do here inside of the viewer. So for example, I could directly delete a page and then download that as a new copy. Or as our samples show, I can add a digital signature. I could do things like redact content from the PDF document and fully eradicate that from underneath it. And all of that is because I'm working with the original PDF document instead of just a bitmap image. Now, in addition to PDF documents, we have quite a few other file types that we support. So earlier I was mentioning that we've expanded out the set of files that we're able to handle directly inside of Webviewer. And so in addition to PDF documents and image files, which can all be loaded directly inside of Webviewer, we do have support for the sort of base Office types, so Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. We're able to load in directly, and you don't need any sort of additional server-side component or anything like that. Rather, what Webviewer can do is just read the bytes of the Office file directly and immediately start rendering it on screen. And you can then interact with the document just as you would any sort of PDF file or multi-page image that you had loaded up inside of Webviewer. So we can do the same thing of zooming in, annotating, and saving off as a PDF copy or an image if you wish. The document also is able to load in a piecemeal fashion. So we're able to start rendering the document as soon as we download the bytes of it, and we don't need to download the entire file before rendering it in many cases. So that can lead to the same performance advantages that we see with PDF, where we're able to load up documents very quickly as a result of that kind of efficient loading. And we're also able to keep a constant size memory footprint, because if we scroll around in the document and it's a very large one, then what we can do is discard those bytes that we've already downloaded, since we know that we can go back to the server and download them again. Now, in terms of the editing of Office documents, essentially when we load them into Webviewer, it's very similar to working with them as if they were originally PDF documents. So the kinds of editing that we can do is very similar to the editing that we can do with PDF documents. So we can do things, as I was saying, like delete pages or rotate them, merge different documents together, and we can also annotate these files as well. So here on this docx document, I can search for text here on our search panel, and actually highlight some of that content. So I can search for the word and it will automatically find all the instances of it here in the browser, just performing the search natively. So that way the results show up for me right away. And I can also do things like select text and copy it out or annotate it by adding things like highlight annotations or other sorts of markups. And I can add additional annotations as well, like shapes or freehand markups too. So I can do a kind of freehand highlight here over the document. So someone was asking, in terms of rendering, how is the performance in the scale of hundreds of megabytes? And we're actually able to handle very, very large documents, essentially almost arbitrarily sized files, because of this efficient loading of content that we're able to do. If the PDF document is linearized, then despite however large it is, what we can do is download those bytes needed to render whatever is currently visible on screen, and then discard the rest of the bytes. So that makes it very, very quick to load relative to doing things like downloading the entire file and only then rendering it. And it also makes it, as I said, something that enables keeping a constant size memory footprint, because we can discard those bytes we've already downloaded if we do need to free up some room. So I would encourage you to try this in your environment as well. If you do have some very large files, then you can try uploading them either to this demo or loading them from your own file storage. And as you can see, also we're able to essentially jump randomly within the document and still be able to render pages quickly. And again, that's because we don't have to download the entire file before we start rendering things. So just jumping into some of the questions. So there were some questions about can annotations that we make actually be saved into the document? And certainly you can. So we saw earlier that we could add highlights or other kinds of text markups onto a document. And when we download that by default inside of the Webviewer UI, so if I were to add this square here on top of the document and then save that by downloading it, what that will do is save that annotation into the file, and that's one that can still be rendered by third-party viewers. So let me see if I can bring this up in this viewer here. So within Webviewer, we can save. There it is. There's that second page. So as we see, this annotation was merged into the document. Now that said, most of the time when different users are annotating the same document, it's actually not a great idea to save those annotations into the file itself, because then every time anybody is modifying or adding an annotation, you're creating a whole new copy of the PDF document, and that's generally a bad idea, especially if we're dealing with very large PDFs. If we create an entire new copy of that document every time that square is added or more text is highlighted, then that's going to eat up our file storage very quickly. So with Webviewer, you can also keep annotations external to that file. So rather than saving them directly into the PDF, what you can do is actually keep them external to the document and leave that original PDF unmodified. And the file format that we have built in to support that is called Xfdf. It's an XML-based format that's used throughout the PDF industry. Like, for example, you can import and export Xfdf inside of Adobe Acrobat. And so the idea is that we display the original PDF document in Webviewer, and then over that we overlay whatever annotations have been made on that file. This capability really sort of opens up a lot of possibility with different workflows and use cases inside of Webviewer. And the big one that it really opens up is the ability to collaborate in real time on the same document. So what different users can do on their different machines is one user can bring up this PDF in their environment inside of Webviewer, and then another user can do the same. And then one user makes an annotation, and then that gets sent over to the other browser, and they're able to see that newly created annotation. And this can really happen just in real time, effectively, instantly for the end user, and that way different people can collaborate on the same document and comment on different areas in the file, and have that anchored also to a specific location on the page. So I can kind of show this a bit with one of our samples here. So what we have in this sample is the ability to bring up one document, and what we'll do is switch between different users to get the experience of having different users actually modifying this document in real time. So let's say there's an ordinary user here, Sally, who comes in and is able to see this document and wants to maybe point out something as being a bit problematic in the file. Maybe something needs revision or rewording or something like that. So let's say that Sally comes in here and draws a rectangle on top of this document. What that will automatically do here in this comments pane is create a comment attached to that annotation. So if I click on it, we can see it's pointing out exactly where that annotation is. And then, so I've logged in as this Sally user here. So what Sally's going to do after making this annotation is do a call out to the Justin user and say, Justin, @Justin, could you review? And collaborating in real time, then Justin could see this comment from Sally. We have APIs inside of Webviewer, so you can handle these @ mentions however you like. So for example, you could customize it to send out an email to the Justin user, or you could, if there's a workflow system that your solution includes, maybe like a task list or something like that, then this annotation could trigger something being added to a task list for this Justin user, and so that way Justin could see, oh, there's a comment thread that I need to go take a look at and maybe add my thoughts on. So let's say Sally has alerted Justin to this. We can change to the Justin user here in the side of this demo just to get a sense of how this works. And so now Justin can come in and say, looks good. We see that this is then made by this Justin user. Another thing we can do to drive this workflow forward is to set different states on this conversation thread. So we have some default states that are built in. These are actually ones that are specified by the PDF specification as default settings, but you can customize this to be whatever you'd like. And you can actually tailor this to particular workflows that your users might have. So you could do this on a per annotation basis, for example. Like you might have say like a special kind of highlight that indicates something needs to be reviewed from a legal standpoint. And that way you could then have custom annotation states centered around that kind of legal workflow and tailor it around what sort of steps need to be taken in that case if somebody finds some language that's legally questionable. And that way you can really use these annotation states to enable users to drive themselves through whatever workflow you'd like them to go through. So it really kind of reduces the ambiguity in the steps of their particular workflow and enables them to kind of follow a set specified path. So it's a pretty useful kind of tool in your arsenal for UI. And so, once we set one of those states, then we create a new comment thread about that. Now, this Justin user actually is an administrative user we see. So the Sally user was just an ordinary user. Justin is an administrative user. And what that means is that Justin can come in and modify anyone's annotations, not just the ones that they made themselves, but those of any other users as well. So, if Justin wanted to come in here and actually, adjust this annotation, then Justin would be able to do so being an administrator. But the Sally user can only modify their own annotations because they're a non-administrative user. We also have support for read-only users as well. So this Brian user can come in, and Brian is unable to modify anybody else's annotations, and we can see that Brian only has the view capability as well. So Brian isn't able to make new annotations or anything like that. And this is sort of a useful way for external users or those other users who maybe the general public who maybe should not be allowed to make annotations on this document to be able to come in and still see the current state of it and be able to review. In terms of how this is actually enacted on the Webviewer side. So Webviewer doesn't actually manage any users or logins or user permissions or anything like that. Rather, it's something that can be done when the Webviewer object is instantiated on a page. At that point, what you can do is set the username. So whatever string should be used when creating an annotation. That's sort of what that value sets there. And as well, you can say whether it's a read-only user or not. So, if we want to create this sort of external user like Brian is, then we can enable read-only mode. Or if we do want to have an administrative user instead, then we can do set as administrator for that user, and they will then have the permission to be able to modify others' annotations. In addition to that, let me just check the polls here. So I think there's some question about whether we'll cover measurement annotations, so I can jump into those. So we do have support for measurement annotations built directly into the toolkit. We have some pre-made ones, but you could also create your own custom annotations and add those as well. So some of the more useful ones are to be able to draw a line and measure distance and perimeter or area. So for example, here what I can do is directly draw a line here on this blueprint. We actually have built-in snap to points so that I'm able to kind of automatically snap an endpoint here onto a point on the blueprint. We also can go in and calibrate this as well. So this very first annotation that I've drawn, if there's perhaps a scale on a construction document, then what we can do is draw this line over that scale and then use that to set the calibration for the entire file. So currently this is just using PDF units, the sort of default units built into a PDF page. But what we can do, let's say this is meant to be, say, 10 feet across, this bedroom here. What we can do is just change that in the calibration and apply that. And now subsequent measurements that we make will have that calibration set for it. So now we see that, if we make further measurement annotations on this document, that those already have that particular scale set up. So rather than measuring in inches, now this is measuring in feet. In addition to this sort of distance measurement, we have quite a few others. So we have perimeter measurement of different areas inside of a document. So let's say we wanted to measure the perimeter around this room here. We can do so directly, and once we close this path, then it will give us the actual perimeter measurement. Additionally, so yeah, we can see the perimeter is measured, and we have some other information about the scale and so on. So we have area measurement as well. So if you wanted to measure the area within one of those areas, we have that built in. We've also added things like the ability to draw ellipses and rectangles and have those automatically have measurement capabilities built in. And we're also in the process of developing arc measurements as well. So that's something that we're currently finalizing, and I would expect that to be probably in the next version of Webviewer, the next release. If all goes well in terms of our implementation. But that's something that we're actively developing, and it should soon have available in a standard release. Now, someone was asking whether it's possible to get an alert for something that's been tagged, and yeah, that is a built-in API inside of the toolkit. If you want to set up an alert for somebody, that's something that's built in. We also have events that are built into Webviewer as well. If you want to do things like build in analytics into Webviewer of which annotations have changed, or when a page has been changed, or when a document has been downloaded, we have these events built in, so you can instrument off of those and log those changes happening. And if you need more detailed, or finer grained kinds of instrumentation of Webviewer, then that's quite possible as well, since we have our UI source code posted to GitHub. And as well, this annotation changed event is a pretty useful one for collaborating in real time, just going back to that a little bit. How that's implemented is that when an annotation has been modified, this event is raised, and then you can get the Xfdf for that annotation immediately here inside of Webviewer. And additionally, you can get the actual annotations that have been modified too, sort of those annotation objects inside of the Webviewer SDK, rather than the Xfdf. And what that would enable you to do is save those annotations into whatever format you wish. So if Xfdf as a format isn't a good fit for you, then you could use this capability to do things like saving the annotations as JSON or some other format, depending on what best fits your architecture. Now, in terms of pre-built solutions, we actually have an offering at collaboration.pdftron.com to make it very easy to set up this kind of real-time collaboration within your system. And basically what it lets you do is download a couple of node modules and host them in your environment. And it can connect directly into your database and save that Xfdf into your own databases in your environment. And basically what this lets you do is set this up very, very quickly, rather than starting from one of our samples, which can get you going pretty quickly. But this is just sort of a drop-in solution that lets you very quickly get going with real-time collaboration between different users and different browsers. So I would definitely recommend checking out this site, collaboration.pdftron.com, if you are thinking of providing real-time collaboration to your users. In addition to this solution, we also have some pre-made samples for setting up real-time collaboration. We have one based around Firebase, if you prefer to use that as a database, and then we have one sample that's on GitHub that shows how to use Node.js, SQLite, and WebSockets to perform this real-time collaboration between users. And the nice thing about this one is that the source code is included here. So if you wanted to customize this to use whatever technology suits you best, then you could do so. So if you wanted to use a different database, or if instead of WebSockets you wanted to use something else, you could certainly do so. But for the most part, the easiest way to get real-time collaboration set up with Webviewer is through these pre-made packages here. So I'd recommend checking those out. So I'm just going to, so there was a question, how would the collaboration be supported in a platform like Salesforce? So certainly in Salesforce, you could save Xfdf into the Salesforce backend, just as you would a modified PDF document. So when you're adding annotations to the document there, you can just export that Xfdf and save it into your Salesforce instance or something external if you wish. And then other users could then consume that Xfdf and see those same annotations on that document. And another option, of course, is to just save the annotations directly into the PDF and replace whatever's existing, and kind of use that single PDF copy as a point of collaboration as well. So we have a few different options. It sort of depends on how you would like it to work. Someone was asking whether Webviewer supports incremental updates, and Webviewer does support incremental updates. So you can do things like when digitally signing, you can incrementally save at the end, so that way you can support making multiple signatures on a document. Now, we sort of talked a bit about different kinds of annotations, but we also do have support for custom annotations as well. So those can be pretty simple, like just I want to add a custom image to the document, or I want to stamp some particular text onto the file. But it could be quite complicated as well. With you could create your own style of annotation drawing, your own shapes, or your own custom way of displaying things. And actually, that's how these measurement annotations first began, just as custom annotations that we had inside of the inside of Webviewer, made up of like a line drawing and then some text laid over it. And in general, if there's some kind of annotation appearance that you'd like to present, or some way that you'd like it to look, that should be supportable within Webviewer. And as I mentioned, we've in the latest version made it possible to export custom appearances to Xfdf as well. So that way, it's much easier to present custom annotations in a collaborative environment, because you can save that out to the Xfdf, and then some other user who is consuming the Xfdf will see that same custom appearance stream. So now, if we're talking about sort of simple stamps, we can maybe take a look at some of the different ways we have of doing that. So in terms of just images, it's quite easy for us to just take an image and create an image stamp out of that and add that to the document, which can then be manipulated just like any other kind of annotation, rotated or scaled, or turned into a link. And additionally, we can stamp text on the document as well. So a good example of that is our watermarking sample. Bear with me. So what this sample shows is that we can take dynamically generated text and add them directly onto the page. So here, by default, what we're doing is adding just a "Hello World" stamp diagonally across the document. We see it's sort of a little bit over top of the PDFTron watermark that's already there. And additionally, we have some custom text on here that just shows the date and time this document was viewed. This can be actually pretty helpful from a security standpoint. So the idea here is that if a user maybe takes a screenshot of this document, or even snaps a picture of the screen with the camera on a mobile device, that you'll at least have some information about who is displaying this document, and the time, maybe the location where they were when they actually viewed this. So rather than saying "Hello World," it might say something like Aaron, to say who the person was that's viewing this document at this time. And these can be burned into the document as well, so that when we download the file, we have those watermarks already included. Now, another thing we can do in terms of security is we do support adding passwords onto the document. So we can make this document encrypted and password protected. We can actually, one technique that's pretty useful is to apply that encryption server side. So adding a password and encrypting the document on the server. And then what we can do is send that password secretly down to Webviewer through a custom channel, like say a WebSocket connection, a REST API call, or something like that. And then Webviewer can actually silently apply that password without the user even knowing. So that way, even if the user manages to somehow grab a copy of the PDF document, that they wouldn't have the password necessary to open it. And another thing we can do is change the UI to make it a little harder to steal content if we're looking to lock down this file. So here inside of our UI customization, we can see that it's quite easy to go about doing things like removing a download or print button or disable text selection. We actually have pretty high-level APIs inside of Webviewer for doing so. We just call instance UI disable elements on whatever we'd like to get rid of, or disable features for things like text selection. So that makes it quite easy to go in and remove, say, those kinds of buttons and make it so if a user wants to download a copy, they don't have like a download button that just makes that possible for them. Another thing we can do with the UI customization that's pretty useful is go in and remove UI elements that end users might find confusing. So if you're working with end users that maybe would be a bit overwhelmed by too many buttons or too many annotation types, that's something that you can slim down and streamline the UI for whatever their use case is. So say if all they have to do is just strike out text, then you can remove everything else, and then it's very straightforward to go and find the button I need to actually do the work I'm supposed to be doing. So this can really help make it much faster to work with documents and less error prone as well. So it's something that's pretty helpful, and really anything within this UI can be customized. Once again, because we have the UI code posted to GitHub, so if there is something in here that you'd like to tweak, you can always fork that code and go about making that implementation directly. Okie doke. Just kind of going through some of these questions here. So it looks like in terms of the poll, people were sort of asking about PDF manipulation quite a bit. So I can delve into that a bit more. So in terms of manipulation, we offer the APIs from our native toolkit in here as well. So what that means is that you can convert from quite a few different file types into PDF and show them in the viewer here, and also directly manipulate those documents. But we've sort of taken our thumbnail UI here and really expanded its capabilities and the power it has to manipulate documents. So you can do things like drag and drop thumbnails in some cases, or delete them directly from this thumbnail panel. We also have some samples, showing how to manipulate multiple documents at one time. So what I'm going to do is just bring up that sample here. And what this sample shows is that we can drag and drop thumbnails between two different documents and sort of use that as a way of assembling a new PDF document from scratch or from other documents. So here on the left we'll have one particular document, and then on the right, kind of the new document here that we're assembling from that existing file. And what that will let us do is just kind of pretty intuitively be able to build up some sort of new file. And again, apologizing for the my apologies for the delay here. It's the I think the network bandwidth taken up by the webinar software here in this case. So here within this sample, I think once it actually loads, we'll be able to see it in action. So here what I can do is just drag this over and then insert that new page into that document. So as a result, we have this new document that's made up of these 3 pages, and we can continue to copy pages over, and then so that way if someone is making up a new document from scratch, then they'll be able to assemble a new file. But in general, our PDF manipulation is something that goes beyond that. In addition to modifying pages, we have the ability to rewrite text on a particular page or redact content from a specific area of a PDF document. And so that way, you can really do whatever you'd like to these PDFs. Someone was asking whether shared page resources are copied over with every edition, and it really depends on how you end up doing that. We have some APIs that are able to move multiple pages at once and only one-time copy over page resources, and preserve the sharing of those if those are shared resources between them. But for some of our other APIs, those would duplicate those shared resources. So that's something to maybe pay attention to if you're dealing with large documents and ones that do try to minimize that resource usage by sharing them between browsers. Someone was asking whether there are any plans to have Excel files displayed as a spreadsheet with the column and row headers instead of displaying them as pages without the column and row headers. And our Office capabilities are something that we're always in the process of expanding. Whether that will come to the point where it more resembles editing of Office documents rather than just PDFs, that's something that would be at some point in the future, if we do end up developing that. But currently, what we do is normalize Office files into essentially a PDF format, and permit the kinds of editing that's enabled there. Just kind of review the open questions again. In terms of the CAD files that we can support, we have a listing of those on our site here. So what I'm going to do is go to our cross-platform API. And actually what I'm going to do is just use our search bar here. I'm going to search for one of the formats that we support. And that will get me to the listing of our full file type support. So in terms of CAD files, we support DWG, DGN, DWF, DXF, and RVT currently. And we're able to support those essentially by normalizing into PDF. And that includes the Revit file as well. That's essentially what we're doing is converting to a 2D view of that content. It's similar to printing that document. We'll present that 2D view of the Revit file. And for other files like DWG and so on, it's very similar to printing that document. In terms of filling out files, that's not something that's built into our Excel and Office capabilities. Again, it's very similar to converting into a PDF copy. Another person was asking whether Webviewer supports displaying XFA forms. We have built-in support for a lot of different forms. We don't have XFA support that's very extensive. We have very, very limited XFA support. In terms of forms in general, however, we do have quite extensive support for those. And within forms in Webviewer, you can fill those out, as well as add new form fields onto a document. And we actually have that in our interactive demo as well. So you can go in directly and add new form fields onto a document. So for example, if someone scanned or faxed a form and then sent that in, you may strongly want to kind of add new fillable form fields onto it so that for end users, it's a more intuitive experience and it's easier to work with. And you can actually give that a try with your own documents here inside of our demo. In the form building demo, what we can do is just add new fields onto the document, such as a text field or a signature field. And so you can take a scan or a fax of a form and then build that up into a more usable version immediately. Just scrolling through some of the questions posted into the chat. Someone else was asking about getting the structure of a PDF. So doing things like identifying things on page that might be like paragraphs or lists or headers and footers in the proper order. Is there any way to kind of break down the content of a page into those high-level structures? And that's not something that we have built into our core toolkit, but it is built into our AI technology, and you can see it in action at PDFTron.ai. We have a demo set up here with some pre-made documents, but you can upload your own as well. And what this will do is it's essentially a document understanding platform. So the idea is that it takes a PDF page and recognizes parts of it as having a particular structure, as maybe being contained within a particular paragraph, being part of a header or a footer, or being part of a table. And what it can do is highlight those areas for one thing. So sort of make annotations around them so that you have an idea of where they're located. So that's sort of the detection part of our AI solution. And we also have extraction as well. So in the case of tables, what we can do is automatically detect those and extract them into Xhtml. So that's what we're showing here in this demo. So we have a web viewer here that will pop up in a second. And we'll show some of the things that our AI was able to detect in this document. So we'll see that it was able to detect where these tables are and draw rectangles around each of those. And here in the output, this is actually an HTML file, or actually XHTML. So it is technically XML. So you can use an XML parser to read that and go through the contents. And within that XHTML, we have all of the tabular content stored as actual XHTML tables. So TRs and so on. So you can go through each of the rows and extract that and put that into a database or spreadsheet or however you'd like to process it. And that way, you can kind of save a lot of time of copying all of that out manually, saving a lot of errors too. If someone is manually copying through data entry, the text on a PDF page, or even selecting it and copying it out and pasting it into some other document, that's always going to be a lot more error prone than simply automatically extracting that information. So that's one of the uses of our AI technology. We also have a demo for article extraction as well that we've trained our AI tech on. So in this case, what we can do is bring up a newspaper document, and what it will do is automatically detect which articles are grouped on this page. So it's able to detect that these columns are all part of one article, that these regions of text are part of their own article, and so on. So it's able to kind of reconstruct that from a given page, and then you could extract just those areas on their own. So this is another kind of place where there might be quite a bit of time savings for users if they're copying some sort of text from a particular document and extracting it on its own, and also saving the potential errors of doing a lot of this stuff manually. So it's a pretty exciting solution, and something that we're really happy to work with customers on to tailor this to their needs. And so, yeah, I mean, so someone was asking, is there any plan to use AI to help with redaction, like personal data recognition or something like that? And we actually have a sample showing how we can detect faces in a PDF document and then automatically redact those. So let me see if I can get that sample running here. 1 second. So that's going to be here in our Webviewer samples. So I'm just going to load up, that's up here under documentation and web. And what I'll do then is I'll go to our samples page. And I believe it's under advanced here. Here we are. Yeah, so redact people faces from PDF is what this is called. So we're able to automatically detect those. And so here what we're going to bring up is a document that's just a photograph of actually some of the PDFTron employees. And what it's going to do is automatically detect where those faces are and draw annotations over them. And because Webviewer has full redaction technology built in, what we can do is actually perform that redaction here inside of the browser. And it's actually a little different than what some other redaction tools do. So a lot of our competitors, what they will do in terms of redaction is just to overlay a black rectangle over the PDF page. This is a very common sort of solution. And while that's very easy to implement, it does have a lot of downsides. One of the big ones being that those rectangles are very easy to remove. It's sort of like adding a sticker over a photograph. You know, it's kind of censoring it, but you can just peel that sticker back off and see what originally was there. So it's not really protecting that content. What some of our other competitors will do is just convert a PDF into a big giant image and then black out pixels in that image and save that new image as a redacted copy. And that's a lot more secure, you know, because you actually have removed that content from the document itself. But it still has its downsides. One of the big ones being that since you're converting from a PDF into an image, you've lost any accessibility information that might have been in the document. So if there were any accessibility tags or alternate text for images or things like that, those are lost. And if you're dealing with any other kinds of PDF features like forms, those would be lost to just converting to an image as well. So preserving the content as PDF can be pretty important. And if there are regulations around accessibility or things, then that can have real relevance for you know, legal matters. So here what we've done is the toolkit has detected, or the image technology that we've integrated with has detected where the faces are in this document, and then we can go in and actually perform that redaction here on this file, actually applying them, and that will fully eradicate this content from the PDF document. So here we've blacked out the pixels on this image portion, and then you know, the rest of the PDF document remains as is. So metadata and so on is still in there. Yeah, so we'll be sending out you know, links to the trial and so on afterwards, and we also include the PDFTron trial key. So if you're dealing with our native toolkits, then there's a key that's included there as well that you can copy in. So yeah, we actually make our full production builds available for you to try out. So you know, our technology, the same exact builds that you would use in production are those that you can download and try out. Really all functionality is enabled when you're trying out our toolkits. So we make everything available. Really the only limitation is just that a watermark is sometimes added to output. So I definitely would encourage you to give the toolkit a try. And then, you know, if you have any questions, you know, in addition to the ones that we've dealt into here today, then feel free to reach out to us. We actually provide full support throughout your evaluation. So, you know, if you have any questions about, you know, how anything works, or if you run into any roadblocks or anything like that, we're more than happy to help you out. If you just go to documentation and then support, and then free trial tech support gets you in touch with myself and my team, and you know, we're happy to you know, work with you throughout any questions you might have during your evaluation of our technology. So yeah, thanks so much for your time here today. Really appreciate everybody's questions and participation. And let us know how it goes and in terms of your evaluation, and we'll be happy to help. So thanks so much, everyone. Cheers.